What's up everyone, it's day 81 in the Big Brother 23 house, and the house guests are still talking about the events of Thursday night as they prepare for the second part of the final head of household competition. We've got so much to talk about, guys, so welcome to your live feed update. Alright folks, now right before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and also please hit the like button as well, guys, if you haven't already. It really helps me out getting my content out there further with the YouTube algorithm, which is incredibly difficult to understand, but I know hitting the like button and the subscribe button can really help that. And also, click the bell icon to get notified every single time a brand new upload goes live on the channel. Alright folks, now question of the day. Now, in regards to Kyland's interview when he was evicted from the Big Brother house, and then he made his own pitch to go back in one day, the question that seems very obvious would be, out of this cast of Big Brother 23, who do you think is most likely to be invited back to play again? You can pick one, you can pick two, you can pick three, you can pick however many you want. But folks, the question is, who do you think is most likely? So it's looking towards one, but I wouldn't mind seeing a few answers. But listen folks, who do you think is most likely to return to Big Brother in the future after this season? Alright guys, so with X having won the first part of the final head of household competition, of course, he is going to work on Big D, trying to ensure that he is going to still make his way to the final two. So X is obviously looking to get rid of Azah and put her into third place and take Big D to the final two. Listen, if X gets to the end, he's going to win the game hands down, but he is obviously trying to cover all angles. So I think he is leaning towards trying to finesse Big D and trying to make sure if Big D somehow does win, you know, it's creating that twosome there, that bond there that's going to make Big D go, I'll get rid of Azah and I'll take X to the end, you know. So they kind of formed a little something called the Creed. So that's their final two deal name. And I mean, I think Big D is he is oblivious at this point. To believe that he can beat X in the end is kind of crazy. He is really going to be humbled when he gets to this final two, because I strongly believe the final two will be Big D and X. He will be humbled, and I don't say this in a disrespectful way or in a bad way at all, but I can truly imagine the jury laughing at Big D's answers when they address him, because he's probably going to be claiming that he masterminded this and he did this and he controlled these people and he manipulated the entire game, and the jury will have talked, you know, now that Tiffany's there especially. You know, we saw the segment on Thursday night where Tiffany was explaining how everything works and how she was the woman to come up with the duo's idea and everything, so they know where things are going. You know, Hannah's obviously going to explain things. Kyland, that's another bomb that's going to hit the jury house this week, so you know, people will talk. And you know, I was about to go into another thing there, but we'll get to that shortly. I need to just focus on this one for now. But the point is, people will talk and then they're going to realise that Big D's totally in over his head. But what I was going to say there is the fact that with Kyland having hit the jury house now, I keep asking myself, and I put this on Twitter as well, I said, do we think he's actually going to bring himself to be able to vote for X if X makes it into the final two? Is Kyland going to be so kind of butthurt about being evicted and betrayed? Would he vote Big D or Azah to win, whoever sat next to X? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to know what y'all think, but it's an interesting one to speculate on. But either way, yeah, X is trying to go to work on Big D, obviously. And I would imagine as the week goes on, we will likely see him trying to go to work on Azah as well, just as a backup. But Azah, I don't think, is stupid enough to take X to the end. I do believe if Azah wins the final head of household competition, she is aware enough to basically cut X, take Big D to the end, and possibly win the game. And what I was thinking on Thursday night as well, before all the chaos ensued, I noticed, and I'd been talking about this earlier in the week as well, Azah is somebody who is a lot more socially and self-aware than Big D. And what I talked about last week was the fact that something that is so underrated in the final two and something that is so important to have is self-awareness. If you are self-aware and you can realise the flaws in your game and what you have done and what you haven't done, that puts you miles ahead of the person who's sat next to you. Because when that other person has kind of got their head up their own ass and they truly believe they've masterminded the whole game, it's easy to beat them or becomes easier to beat them because they are spouting a lot of facts that aren't necessarily true and often damaging their chances at winning the game. But if you can stay level-headed and self-aware, and you can pick apart the flaws of your own game as well as the other person's game, then you put yourself ahead of the other person and a better chance to win the game, which is why I strongly think Azah could beat Big D if she makes it into the final two. And I think she's aware enough to realise, I am not going to beat X. I'm cutting him. But if she is stupid, and if she is stupid and decides to take X, then Azah that is possibly one of the worst, or if not the worst decision in Big Brother history. I mean, it could be up there with Marcellus not using the veto on himself. I just think anybody who takes X is making the dumbest decision in Big Brother history. X is going to win this game if he gets to the end, and he deserves to, especially if one of those other guys takes him. So that's the way I see that one, folks. But that's that for now. X is definitely working all the angles, trying to make sure that no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome is this week of whoever wins the final head of household competition, he is trying to get himself to the end, and I like to see people playing this hard. Well done, X. So something very important to note from Eviction Night, which wasn't really touched upon yesterday, and nobody really kind of realised it until yesterday, so this is kind of part of the live feed update yesterday, was Derek was talking about how he gave Kyland a ring on Eviction Night. He gave him it as kind of like I guess you call it like a compensation kind of thing, or like a kind of just a placement holder, to say you're staying in the house. And obviously we know that didn't happen. Derek was the sole vote to evict Kyland. And if you notice very closely, if you rewatch the eviction, guys, as soon as Julie says, Kyland, leave the house, and Derek says his name, then he grabs the ring, puts it in his pocket. He takes the ring and puts it in his pocket and walks out, right? And, people have been, I've seen all online, everyone's uproaring over this and saying it's disgusting that he did that. And, he did that on national television and everything. And there's one side of me that goes, I get it, because he is kind of annoyed that he's been betrayed. But at the same time, I feel like Kyland did really take all this stuff too far. Because, I mean, yes, you can be really, really hurt, but it's so important. And I'm sure it's incredibly difficult, but it's so important to remember it's a game. He brought in X's nephew's son as he left the house. He took Derek's ring, which came from his dad, who is dead. And I just think the house guests don't know it's Smoking Joe Frazier, but either way, whether it's Smoking Joe Frazier or somebody who isn't famous, it's from his dad, who is no longer alive. He bought him this. I think it was something to do. I think it was like, it wasn't one of Smoking Joe Frazier's rings, but it was a ring that he bought Big D that he's had all of his life, and for him to pocket that and take it away with him to jury house, because Derek was sat there yesterday talking about, I don't think he might not give me a back and stuff like that. So the fact that he's even doubting that says quite a lot. I think it could have been one where he should have been evicted, taken the ring off, and handed him the ring back. That's kind of how I saw it. And I think a lot of people did see it like that as well, from what I've been reading online. And I don't know. I just, it is really, for me, I'm struggling to see any redeeming qualities about Kyland's eviction. It was wrong to be. And I saw a lot of people yesterday kind of going, it was wrong about how, it wasn't wrong that he brought in X's nephew. And I mean, I think it is. It just, listen, you don't bring family members in. I just think it was like he was trying to get a rise out of him. That's kind of what it was like. And the fact that he said, and people said he didn't even say anything that bad about his nephew. I mean, he did, because he said that he's going to have no one good to look up to. And that is bad to the nephew, because you can't say that's not bad to the nephew. Imagine the nephew rewatching this many, many years later. He might not even watch Big Brother now, but if he watches it many, many years later and sees that, he's going to find that offensive. He's going to find that, disgraceful to the honour of his family. That is, it's not right. And I stand by that. It's not right. He shouldn't have brought it in. I mean, the ring thing, he probably should have just gave back to Big D rather than pocketing it and taking it off to the jury house. And then telling Julie that he wants to return to the game. Random stuff, folks. Random stuff. For me, it's one of those things where I'm looking back on it now, that eviction, and I still kind of am in disbelief and thinking, did that really happen? But the matter of the fact is, it did happen. So it seems like the diary room have said no to the name of the creed. This happened later in the day, and so they had to kind of brainstorm what their next name would be and all sort of stuff for their alliance name for that twosome. So they eventually settled on Black Ops, and Big D was kind of thinking to himself that he's worried that Xavier could be kind of working on him like he worked on Kyland last week, making him feel comfortable, and he's just going to cut him like that. So Big D's obviously trying to stay aware about that, but I do believe that X is going to take Big D to the end. So I don't think he's got that much to worry about there, but the worry would be the fact that Big D doesn't even realise he's going to lose against Xavier. So at least he's aware about one thing, but the thing he needs to really be aware of is the fact that he can't beat X in the final two. Wake up, Big D. Wake up and actually realise that you have not played the game that you think you have played. That is all of your live feed updates for today, folks. I thoroughly hope you all enjoyed watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button below and do all of that stuff. But folks, I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on this week so far. How are you feeling with X as the first winner of the final head of household competition? Of course, we've got 2 parts to go. Would you like to see Big D make it to the end? Would you like to see Azah make it to the end? Would you like to see X make it to the end? Who would you like to see win the game? There's just so much to talk about. And what did you think of Kyland pocketing the old ring? What did y'all think of that? I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts about that in the comment section below. And I guess just your thoughts on Kyland's eviction. And of course, with we always do the question of the day on this channel, folks. And of course, today's was, who do you think from this cast is most likely to return in the future to play Big Brother once again? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below, because there is so much to talk about. But folks, I will say, as I always do, make sure that you are staying safe, staying positive and staying healthy out there, and be kind to one another. After this week, it's so important. Be kind to one another, folks. But in the meantime, please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Do all of that stuff. But until your next live feed update, I've been your host, Tom Vasey. Good night.